All right, here we go. I'm down to getting the exhaust on. This is where I'm at. I'm stuck for a minute. I think you got to take the transmission mount loose and this bottom bar off. You got to do all that. I'm going to have to wait. They said you could roll that out there, but man, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not looking at it right, or maybe he was tricking me and just dropped the motor down. Here's that stud it broke off. So, we're down to getting the exhaust fixed, and I let our muffler patch dry up. All I'm going to do with it. A lot of these bolts were loose on that thing. That's why I was hearing an exhaust leak. And I was right, it is cracked. You can see right here, it's cracked right here. And it's cracked right in here. You can barely see it right there. So, it needs another manifold. That's a pretty big job. But I'm at least going to bolt that together right there. Once I get the bolt out, I'm probably going to drill it out. I got some new bolts. I went to Tractor Supply, $2. I had to pay $10 for that bolt in the back. So, next time I'm just going to have to go down there and stock up, make sure, look at everything real good. I got this one bolt here. That's the bolt came out of it. You can look. It's nearly gone. Let me turn the light on here. There you go. Look at that thing. It's gone. But those threads in there are stainless, but I don't have a tap. But what I'm going to do, probably use this spring. And I got some bolts. Got a couple of them. They're not threaded all the way down. That's what upsets me. Wish I could find one at least threaded all the way up. That way, when you go to tighten it down, it don't matter. It's going to squish it together till it eventually tightens. Sometimes I get a piece of all thread, weld a nut on it, and a washer, and just crank it till she pops. Usually it'll bend the exhaust enough to where you can get you a good bolt and stick in there. I've done it on Ford stuff. Like you'll have to get a piece of all thread, probably 8 inches long. It'll have a gap like that. You get it tightened up to where it'll just pretty much break the all thread. And then when you put another bolt in it, it's usually like that close. And you can get it tight and get it sealed up. A lot of people don't like exhaust leaks. So, got a few bolts. Tractor Supply, a couple bucks. Paid $10 for an Amazon bolt. I was like, man, come on. But it's quite the job. You got to get in here. And there's 2 bolts that bolt to the back of that. But once you get it out and loose enough, it's got 2 bolts that go up in the bottom of the bracket too. Man, talk about a nightmare. I tried to dry up all that antifreeze I could. Got to take the antifreeze loose. You got to take it all loose, man. I was hoping to get it all together tonight. I drove it and I figured out what was going on. Right here, you can see where those bolts were loose. It almost burnt this gasket up. Looking for that bracket. I was going to show it to you. Yeah, here. This bracket here. It bolts to the motor like that. And it's got 2 bolts that go up through it like that to hold it. So this might not be going on. And the bottom heat shield might not be going on. This main top heat shield. This is a 2-piece. But some of it you need for the lines that go to the heater core, like these. I had a Chevrolet that it broke a hard line off, and I put a nipple in it and just run the line to it, but it would soften up these hoses and they would blow out, so you got to be careful. I don't know how much these hoses are, but you can get like a heat wrap to put around it, and I might do that if I take and leave this shield off, because I got to get back in there and put a manifold on it. You see it's cracked. Pretty big job. But I cannot do an exhaust leak for save my life. But it's throwing the code for the ABS. This back wheel speed sensor, I finally figured out my scan tool. You can get in there and bring up all 4 wheel speed sensors. And what you do is you put it on a graph. You can click on each one of them, put it on a graph, and you can watch it as it spins. It spikes up and down. I just now figured out how to use a scan tool. It's for ABS. I kept figuring, why can't I get it to delete the ABS codes? Well, what happens is, when that ABS ain't working, it locks up 2 wheels. It's usually this side. And I took and cleaned this wheel off with some of that wheel cleaner. It looks a little bit better, but it needs a couple more treatments. I think it'll clean it off. That stuff's kind of expensive. It's almost 10 bucks a bottle. So I really ain't worried about it. I want the brakes working now. And it's, I put this new ABS wire on there. Right here. And it's reading, because you can unplug it inside of here, and it'll go 0.0, but as soon as you spin, it spikes it out. Same thing if you unplug the ABS wheel speed sensor. What it does is it senses something that's spinning. And it's all-wheel drive, so what it does is it applies the brakes. So what does that mean? That means the brakes will lock up if the ABS wheel speed sensors ain't working. It's the wheel bearing this time on this side. But I got one coming. So they said it wasn't lasting more than 100 miles, so I might have to do it to get by and then buy a really good one. A really good one's like 200 bucks, I think. But as it spins, like I was talking about that magnetic field, it ain't picking up that wheel, and it thinks it's spinning. And on the dash, it'll throw the four-wheel drive caution light, and then you can feel it apply the brakes immediately. Now, the scan tool will clear it out, but I checked all four wheels, and this one wheel here is not reading on the graph. Sometimes it'll go spike up, and then a flat bar, nothing. Now, all the other ones, they go up and down. You know, you stop, it'll stop. As you go, it goes, you know. They're reading. I know the wire's good because when you reset it, it's 0.0. But as soon as you move, it spikes it out like you've unplugged it. So, and when you put it on a graph, it just ain't reading that ABS. So, hopefully, it's nothing wrong with the brakes. I thought I had a bad brake caliper like I was talking about. But it just locks up the brakes or applies the brakes because it senses something spinning with the ABS and the traction control. So all four wheel bearings got to read along with the wire going to the ABS in order for it not to lock the brakes up. I was going down the road and the whole wheel was shaking like this. I thought it was something with this wheel bearing. I said, man, it's got to have a wheel bearing going down. No, it's the ABS. The one wheel ain't reading, so that means that it throws the whole system off. So hopefully we can put a wheel bearing in it. I was going to make a little video of it. I didn't know if anybody would want to see it. I got I think it's an EC or an ES660 scan tool. It's not super expensive. But if you go to the diagnostic side, you know, a quick scan, it tells you that you got, you know, O2 something, short, this, that. I put 2 new O2 sensors on it. But man, it's got a crack on the manifold. So we know that now. It just needs a whole new exhaust. And I did patch up the exhaust a little bit. And I really don't think it matters on the muffler side. It's just, you know, it's throwing a lot of heat. But that's pretty decent. I mean, I just basically wanted to keep the heat off the bottom of the trunk to keep from heating that seam sealer up because it smokes. But I drove it to town, and where it can't sense that ABS wheel speed sensor, it applies the brakes. It makes it do all kinds of crazy stuff. But I'm going to try to watch a video on something, and they said you could roll that out of there, but I'm thinking I'm going to have to unbolt this lower cradle and the motor mount on that side. I got a cherry picker. You got to let the motor down enough to get that out. That's a lot. So, some of the parts might not go back on it because it needs replaced. I think I found a cheaper one, but, you know, I don't know. That's a lot to do. And then I'm going to take a stick and burn the nuts off. I'm going to take a 6010 or a 6013 welding rod that's hot and just melt the nuts off the back of that. That way I can stick a bolt through it. If I got to use a piece of all thread and those bolts don't work, at least it's bolted up. But the bolts had backed out of the top side of that manifold, and I think I still need a nut for that corner. So, with that being said, pretty big job. I'm trying to get it right. You know, once I get the ABS wheel speed sensor on, I don't think that'll be a big deal. But to put this manifold back on and the new exhaust, if you got it all together like that, it's just like a factory replacement. To bolt it up here, I'm going to burn the nuts off of the new one too, because those bolts, you've seen them, they're too small. I want a 3/8, or that hole would probably take almost a 1/2 inch shank, Or you could drill it out to a 1/2-inch shank and use a piece of all thread, just weld it up and just crank it hard. I don't put up with crap like that, but with it being cracked, you know, you got to replace it. And that'll get rid of that code. And then you can stick a smoke machine up the tailpipe and make sure it's not leaking anywhere. Same thing, I need a smoke machine for the evap leak too, but it says it's got a massive evap leak, so I'm thinking that's the evap leak. It's in the exhaust. I'm hoping. So I think I got it figured out. A lot of work, a lot of yapping, but let's hope we can get her done.